Chapter 2158, Affectionate Look. Chapter 2158, Affectionate Look. Feng Wu suddenly had an idea. I don't need you to protect me. You can just stay at my home and protect my family. Will you do that? Her mother and Feng Xiaoqi were her soft spot. If she could make sure that they stayed safe, she would be free to do anything. At that thought, Feng Wu clenched her fists in excitement. The white fairy looked at Feng Wu and said, "Don't blame me when you get killed out there." The white fairy was obviously talking to Jun Linyuan. Because Jun Linyuan was the one she was making the deal with. Feng Wu said, "Of course." The white fairy glanced at her. Obviously, her response didn't count. Jun Linyuan was the only one who could make the call. Therefore, the white fairy stared at Jun Linyuan and waited for his reply. The crown prince, on the other hand, was staring angrily at Feng Wu. He was mad because she cared more about other people than herself. Jun Linyuan. Feng Wu knew that if Jun Linyuan didn't agree, the white fairy would never say yes. Feng Wu ran to sit next to Jun Linyuan and held his arm. I need to put myself in danger to train myself. Protecting me all the time won't help me. Plus, you're here. You'll keep me safe, right? Jun Linyuan rolled his eyes at her. Feng Wu grinned at him. Jun Linyuan was speechless. He had let the white fairy out so that she could protect Feng Wu's family. That was the only way to free Feng Wu from her worries. She could then do whatever she wanted. Otherwise, the girl would be restrained by her responsibility toward her family. If she couldn't be a free spirit, how could she defeat her enemies? Jun Linyuan gave her an affectionate look and nodded in resignation. Wow! Feng Wu was thrilled. She took Jun Linyuan's arm and swayed it in excitement. Just then footsteps approached from outside again. This time it was Gao the eunuch. Zhao Jia still stopped him, but when Jun Linyuan heard the voice, he snorted and said, "Let him in." When Gao saw Feng Wu, he smiled wryly and said, "Your Royal Highness, I didn't mean to disturb you, but Princess Jun Wuxia has woken up, and His Majesty wants to see Miss Feng Wu." Before, Feng Wu was worried, but now that her family was protected, she had nothing to worry about. She had to deal with Jun Wuxia as soon as possible. Jun Linyuan thought the same, and they both rose to their feet. Seeing that Jun Linyuan was going as well, Gao tried to stop him. "Your Royal Highness, His Majesty summoned Miss Feng Wu only." Feng Wu rolled her eyes in her head. In Gao's eyes, Feng Wu was Jun Linyuan. He was worried that Jun Linyuan would enrage the emperor. But because of the 9th trial, she had to stay within 10 steps of Jun Linyuan. She had about 2 weeks to go. Therefore, she walked out of the room without looking at Gao. She was getting better and better at imitating Jun Linyuan. Of course, Gao didn't dare stop the crown prince. Chapter 2159 Untitled. Chapter 2159, Untitled. The crown prince might seem harmless now, but he could explode with rage at any minute, and when he did that, he might try to kill someone. As expected, Gao took them to Empress Duga's place. Jun Linyuan stepped into the room first. Emperor Wu's face darkened when he saw Feng Wu come in. The mood in the room became very suppressed. Seeing the girl raise her chin and stare right into his eyes, he was enraged by her lack of respect. "You!" When he was about to start, Jun Linyuan walked into the room. His arrival immediately silenced Emperor Wu. Jun Wuxia had been sleeping soundly in bed, but she suddenly looked up and spotted Feng Wu. Her ear-splitting scream then filled the air. "Ah!" Frightened, Jun Wuxia wrapped her arms around her head and shouted, "It was her! It was her! She tried to kill me! Kill her now!" She struggled so violently that the others couldn't keep her still. When Mrs. Zhuo ran to her side, Jun Wuxia grabbed her hand and shouted, "She killed Zhuo Qingyu! It was her! I saw it with my own eyes! Feng Wu killed Zhuo Qingyu! I saw it, so she wanted to silence me." In fact, she was telling the truth. Mrs. Zhuo was stunned. She and her husband had speculated that Feng Wu was the killer, but they had no evidence. But Jun Wuxia had said it, so it had to be true. "Go get Master Zhuo." Realizing how serious it was, Granny Chung, who worked for Empress Dugu, whispered to a maid next to her, And bring Master Dugu and Her Majesty the Empress Dowager as well. Find as many people as you can. This was a great opportunity to take Feng Wu down. Maybe this was going to be their chance to kill Feng Wu. With enough people here, even if His Royal Highness didn't like it, he still couldn't turn against the majority. The maid immediately left the room. By then, Mrs. Zhua had returned to herself. She stared at Feng Wu, as if she wanted to kill her with her eyes. Did you kill my daughter? Mrs. Zhua felt too weak to move. She stumbled toward Feng Wu with bloodshot eyes. Jun Linyuan narrowed his eyes and was displeased. Feng Wu decided that as long as he didn't do anything outrageous, she would let him be. Seeing that Feng Wu wouldn't speak, Mrs. Zhua grabbed her by the shoulder and shook her violently. She screamed, "Did you kill Qingyu? Did you kill my daughter? I'm going to kill you." She wanted to bite Feng Wu. However, this Feng Wu was actually Jun Linyuan, who was a neat freak. He couldn't stand to be touched. The next second, thump, he pushed Mrs. Zhua away. Thump, Mrs. Zhua flew backward and smashed into the wall, which then fell apart, and the debris buried her. Everyone was dumbfounded. Even Emperor Wu was shocked. He had anticipated that Feng Wu would deny it, but he didn't expect her to be so bold. Chapter 2160. Untitled. Chapter 2160. Untitled. Mrs. Zhua. Sister. Once everyone realized what had happened, they panicked and tried to dig Mrs. Zhua out. Jun Wuxia watched this in disbelief. She didn't understand why Feng Wu could be so conceited. She was genuinely frightened. But soon she could think straight again. This wasn't right. She was supposed to run the show here. Behind her was her mother Empress Dugu, and her father Emperor Wu, and all around her were her family members. How dare Feng Wu behave so arrogantly here? Jun Wuxia's eyes lit up. She felt that she had found a way to kill Feng Wu. Since Feng Wu had lost her temper, she would provoke her and make her angrier. At that thought, Jun Wuxia pushed Granny Yu and Yulian away and charged at Feng Wu. However, she didn't know that this Feng Wu was actually the person she feared the most. Ignorance could make one fearless. Thus Jun Wuxia felt very brave right now. She pointed at Feng Wu and ranted, "Feng Wu, you killed Zhua Qingyu, and you wanted to kill me. I saw it with my own eyes. You're going to pay for what you did." Clang! Jun Wuxia took a dagger out of her sleeve and tried to stab Feng Wu in the heart. She wanted to kill Feng Wu to get revenge herself. Neither Emperor Wu nor Empress Dugu tried to stop her. Jun Linyuan's eyes flickered. He was furious. It wasn't because Jun Wuxia had disrespected him, but because of how they treated Feng Wu. What would they do if he wasn't here? Seeing that Feng Wu was angry, Jun Wuxia smirked. "You're a murderer. You have no right to be angry. Die." As she spoke, she struck at Jun Linyuan's chest with her dagger. Jun Linyuan didn't try to parry. Instead, he raised his arm. Before Jun Wuxia realized it, her neck was in Jun Linyuan's hands. His grip then tightened, and Jun Wuxia almost couldn't breathe. "Stop!" Everyone was shocked. Empress Dugu and Emperor Wu cried out together. Even Feng Wu was frightened. She knew that Jun Linyuan was angry, but she didn't expect that he would try to kill someone. Jun Wuxia was the emperor's daughter, and a princess of the empire. He couldn't kill her in front of everyone. She kept giving Jun Linyuan warning glances, but Jun Linyuan simply ignored her. Feng Wu has lost her mind. Help! Help the princess! Empress Dugu watched as Feng Wu lifted Jun Wuxia by the neck. The grip around Jun Wuxia's neck was so tight that Jun Wuxia was about to pass out. She struggled involuntarily. Soon her face turned purple. Empress Dugu almost fainted. Seeing this, the guards rushed over to kill Feng Wu. Feng Wu frowned. Jun Linyuan was using her body now and only had limited capability. If he was injured, she would be the one to suffer the injury in the end. Chapter 2161 Untitled. Chapter 2161 Untitled. At that thought, Feng Wu activated her spiritual essence and struck out. Thump! The dozen or so guards who were charging at Feng Wu flew backward, as if they had run into a wall. Feng Wu couldn't control all of Jun Lingyuan's power, and had overdone it slightly. The entire courtyard almost collapsed, and all the guards were knocked out. Emperor Wu was furious. He had no idea that things would get out of hand. Without thinking, Emperor Wu grabbed Feng Wu's arm and injected his spiritual essence into her body. He wanted to damage her energy channels and make her implode. Although Emperor Wu wasn't as capable as Jun Linyuan was, he was much more powerful than Feng Wu. Therefore, when he put his hand on Jun Linyuan's arm, Feng Wu walked to his side and put a hand on his arm. It was a blatant threat. Feng Wu made it very clear that if Emperor Wu injured Jun Linyuan, there would be consequences. Emperor Wu glared at Feng Wu. "Jun Linyuan, how dare you?" Feng Wu smirked. "Why are you so surprised?" It was obvious that Emperor Wu was trying to kill Feng Wu. Of course, Feng Wu wouldn't let him. Emperor Wu was furious. "Jun Linyuan, have you lost your mind? Why are you still protecting her? She wanted to kill your sister." Feng Wu smirked. "Anyone would feel angry when they're wronged. She's only overreacting a little. Your Majesty, don't be so upset." Emperor Wu was infuriated. Overreacting a little? She had tried to kill a princess. Emperor Wu had never felt so confused before. "Jun Linyuan, you've lost your mind. Let go of me." Emperor Wu bellowed. Feng Wu snorted. "I won't let anyone touch her, not even your Majesty. Plus, she was wronged." That was a very straightforward statement. She had her own plan, since she had a feeling that she and Jun Linyuan would soon switch back to their own bodies. When that happened, it wouldn't be that easy for her to play tricks. Therefore, she had to let everyone know that Feng Wu was under Jun Linyuan's protection. That way, the others would have to think twice before they tried to do something to Feng Wu. She didn't notice that when she said that, the crown prince glanced at her. Emperor Wu was too furious to notice it either. He snorted. "She was wronged? By whom? How? Explain it to me. She has to release your sister first. If anything happens to Wuxia, I'll kill the entire Feng clan." Feng Wu's stomach lurched. She couldn't care less about Feng Yanfeng and his family, but her mother and brother were at home as well. She didn't want them to become fugitives. Chapter 2162. Untitled. Chapter 2162 Untitled. At that thought, Feng Wu let go of Emperor Wu. Emperor Wu let go of Jun Linyuan as well. Feng Wu tugged at Jun Linyuan's sleeve, trying to give him a hint that it was time for her to take over. Jun Linyuan took the hint and let her do the rest. Thump! Without warning, Jun Linyuan dropped his sister. Caught off guard, Jun Wuxia fell on her bottom, and the pain brought tears to her eyes. Before she realized it, Feng Wu was by her side. "Jun Wuxia, did you really see Feng Wu kill Zhuo Qingyu?" Jun Wuxia gasped for air. For a moment, she thought she was going to die. But before she could breathe normally, her brother was questioning her. That was the longest sentence he had ever said to her. Therefore, Jun Wuxia was frightened once more. She knew that the crown prince was on Feng Wu's side, which made her want to cry, but she was too scared to cry. "Speak." Feng Wu stared at her. Jun Linyuan's grim face was one of the scariest images in Jun Wuxia's memory, and that fear hadn't faded as she grew older. Jun Wuxia didn't dare stall. She rubbed her neck and said in a hoarse voice, "Yes, I saw Feng Wu kill Zhuo Qingyu with my own eyes. I'm not lying." No one knew that better than Feng Wu. She looked around and saw that more and more people had arrived. Master Dugu, Master Zhua, and Lord Mu were all here. Even the Empress Dowager was here. With them looking on, Feng Wu would never admit that she was the one who killed Zhuo Qingyu. She needed to exonerate herself. Only 4 people were there. Zhuo Qingyu was dead, and Qiuling was on her side. All she needed to do was prove that Jun Wuxia was lying. Feng Wu racked her brain. Suddenly her eyes lit up. She stared at Jun Wuxia. "What did Zhuo Qingyu or you do to make Feng Wu want to kill you?" Feng Wu knew that given Jun Wuxia's personality, she would try to completely absolve herself. She would never admit that they had wanted to kill Qiuling. And that was the trap Feng Wu set for Jun Wuxia. She was right. As Feng Wu expected, Jun Wuxia did exactly that. She shrugged and said innocently, I didn't do anything. I don't know why Feng Wu was mad at us. Feng Wu smiled. If that's true, then why did she want to kill you? Jun Wuxia said. Feng Wu and Zhuo Qingyu had grudges against each other. When Feng Wu found an opportunity in the tombs, of course, she would grab it. Feng Wu frowned. Are you sure that you did nothing wrong? Jun Wuxia gave Jun Linyuan a terrified glance. Chapter 2163 Untitled. Chapter 2163, Untitled. Jun Wuxia couldn't tell them that she had tried to kill Qiuling. She had been insisting that she hadn't done anything wrong. If she admitted it now, they would think that she had been lying. At that thought, Jun Wuxia shook her head solemnly. No, we didn't do anything. Feng Wu smirked. Jun Wuxia, do you know that I can see what you did and what you're going to do in the future? Jun Wuxia said. What? Feng Wu pulled a hair off Jun Wuxia's head and pretended to listen to it. Jun Wuxia was dumbfounded. What was her brother doing? Everyone else was as perplexed as she was. No one understood what Jun Linyuan was doing. Feng Wu smirked and said, You bullied a girl in a green dress, didn't you? What? Jun Wuxia stared at her in disbelief. How did he know that? Was he clairvoyant? Jun Wuxia was frightened. She suddenly recalled what Jun Linyuan said earlier about him, being able to see what she had done before. So did he see how she and Zhuo Qingyu had abused Qiuling? Seeing that she couldn't keep up her lie, Jun Wuxia said anxiously, I lied. You're right. We bullied Qiuling. As in Feng Wu's maid. Feng Wu snorted. Jun Wuxia said, Yes, she's Feng Wu's maid. Feng Wu asked, Was that all you did? Jun Wuxia was even more shocked. Was he even human? Why did he know everything? Jun Wuxia was capable of lying to anyone except for Jun Linyuan, because he made her nervous. Therefore she said uneasily, Yes, we did that, but it was mainly Zhuo Qingyu. She hated Feng Wu, so when she saw that Feng Wu's maid was alone, she wanted to kill her. Everyone looked at Jun Wuxia in surprise. So it was true. They had started it. Empress Dugu pressed her hand to her chest. Did you really try to kill Qiuling? Jun Wuxia muttered, She's just a maid. So what if we killed her? Everyone found her statement idiotic. Qiuling was no longer an ordinary maid now. Do you know? Empress Dugu stared at Jun Wuxia. Do you know what Qiuling is like now? After she left the tombs, she rose over 10 levels in a day. Right now, she's already a level 5 spiritual elder. Someone said gingerly, She made more breakthroughs already. She's a level 7 spiritual elder now. SSSS. Everyone drew in their breaths. Jun Wuxia was the most astonished of them all. What? Jun Wuxia looked like she had been electrocuted. She stared at Empress Dugu and asked, Mother, what did you say? You heard me correctly. Qiuling now has an ultimate Yin body. And that's extremely rare. She's been making such fast progress that. Empress Dugu pointed at Feng Wu. Qiuling is about as capable as her master now. Many forces want to take her in. But she's being a fool, and won't leave Feng Wu. But Jun Wuxia didn't hear her. All she could hear was that Qiuling was a level 7 spiritual elder now. She was only a level 9 spiritual master when I met her. Why so sudden? Jun Wuxia had gained nothing in the tombs, and she was filled with despair. Chapter 2164 Untitled. Chapter 2164, Untitled. Feng Wu was happy that people were praising Qiuling, but her top priority now was still setting Jun Wuxia up. Therefore she resumed the subject. She stared at Jun Wuxia and said, So, you were lying when you said that Feng Wu tried to kill you for no reason. Jun Wuxia said, Feng Wu wouldn't give her any chance to explain herself. Your lie proves that you're not trustworthy. Why should anyone believe you? Jun Wuxia felt wronged. But Feng Wu really killed Zhuo Qingyu. She ran to Mr. and Mrs. Zhua and said loudly, I swear it. I saw it with my own eyes. The couple nodded and glared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu smiled. Did you say that you saw it with your own eyes? Jun Wuxia nodded. Feng Wu asked, How capable is Feng Wu? Jun Wuxia didn't want to say nice things about Feng Wu, so she said, She's just a little bit better than me. Feng Wu asked. How far were you from Zhuqingyu? Jun Wuxia thought about it and said, not very far. She was a little over 10 meters away. Feng Wu smirked. If that's the case, then why didn't you help Zhuqingyu? Immediately, everyone gave Jun Wuxia strange looks. That was right. Jun Wuxia and Zhuqingyu went everywhere together like real sisters. Did Jun Wuxia abandon Zhuqingyu when she was in danger? Mr. and Mrs. Zhuo also looked surprised. Jun Wuxia was dumbfounded. She just didn't want to admit that Feng Wu was a capable cultivator. Why did it become her fault now? Jun Wuxia panicked a little. She said, my leg was injured. I couldn't run fast enough to help her. Feng Wu nodded. Jun Wuxia had just walked into another trap. Feng Wu smiled. So you were injured? Jun Wuxia nodded. Feng Wu asked, tell me what stances Feng Wu used. Now. Jun Wuxia was too scared of Jun Linyuan to stall. She searched her memory and said, Feng Wu. She killed Zhuqingyu with a single punch. Feng Wu didn't give Jun Wuxia any time to hesitate. She quickly asked, how fast was she? Jun Wuxia had to answer the question. 1 second. Feng Wu said, you're lying. Jun Wuxia shouted, I'm not. Feng Wu said, you said that Feng Wu is only slightly faster than you. How could she kill Zhuqingyu with a single punch? Jun Wuxia said, Jun Wuxia panicked under the pressure. She was very frustrated. Had she known that she would have to cover one lie with more lies, she would have told the truth from the very beginning. She said, Feng Wu probably wasn't that fast. I feel dizzy. I don't know what I'm talking about. Feng Wu shouted, you're lying. Jun Wuxia's stomach lurched. Why do you say that? I'm not lying. Feng Wu smirked. Is Feng Wu a lot more capable than you or just a little? Jun Wuxia became more and more confused. Chapter 2165 Untitled. Chapter 2165, Untitled. Feng Wu spoke too fast for Jun Wuxia to follow. Jun Wuxia was so frustrated. She couldn't understand what all the fuss was about. No one had questioned her like this before. If it was someone else asking her such questions, she would have lost her temper already. However, looking at Jun Linyuan's frightening face, she didn't dare object. Jun Wuxia flinched and made up her mind. Feng Wu is about as capable as we are. She chased Zhuqingyu for a while before she killed her. Feng Wu nodded. All right, I'll believe you for now. Tell me, why didn't she kill you after she killed Zhuqingyu? That rendered Jun Wuxia speechless. Empress Dugu realized that if Jun Linyuan went on pressing Jun Wuxia like this, the girl might break down. I object. His Royal Highness is pushing too hard. Empress Dugu tried to intervene. Your Emperor Wu only managed to utter one word before Feng Wu cut him off. Overruled, Feng Wu cast a stern look at Empress Dugu and ignored her. She then went back to questioning Jun Wuxia. Emperor Wu didn't know what to say. Feng Wu asked, which of your legs was injured? Jun Wuxia said, my left leg. Under Feng Wu's stare, Jun Wuxia looked as helpless as a bunny. She then said, no, it was my right leg. Feng Wu looked at her in resignation. Which one was it? Left or right? Jun Wuxia shuddered and said, left. Feng Wu then turned to Granny Lan, the Empress Dowager's maid. Granny Lan, please examine the princess's left leg. See if she's really injured. Jun Wuxia immediately paled. She had lied again. There was no injury on her leg. She forced a smile and said, that won't be necessary. I've recovered fully already. Feng Wu smirked. If there's no injury, that means that you've lied to us again. Jun Wuxia was speechless. Empress Dugu looked at Jun Wuxia in disappointment. This was such a great opportunity, but Jun Wuxia had ruined it. She couldn't understand how her daughter could be so stupid. Granny Lan walked to Jun Wuxia's side and said, Your Royal Highness, please follow me. Jun Wuxia couldn't let Granny Lan examine her, but Jun Linyuan was watching, so she couldn't throw a tantrum. In the end, she lowered her head and said weakly, I made it up. My leg wasn't injured. Everyone gave her strange looks. She had revoked her statements so many times that everyone now doubted everything she said. But Feng Wu really killed Zhuo Qingyu. She tried to kill me too. I'm not lying. Jun Wuxia was almost in tears. She was telling the truth. That was exactly what happened. Somehow her brother, who could see the past, wouldn't believe her. Jun Wuxia felt helpless. Feng Wu looked at Jun Wuxia and said coldly, "If Feng Wu could kill you, why didn't she?" Jun Wuxia said angrily, "She wanted to, but she didn't have time. She ran away when she heard the footsteps of my brother and Zhuo Qingxian." Chapter 2166 Untitled. Chapter 2166 Untitled. Feng Wu laughed. "Didn't you just say that she's a lot more capable than you? She should still have enough time to run away after killing you." Jun Wuxia said, "She's not a lot more capable than me. She's just slightly better." "Are you sure?" Jun Wuxia said, "I'll take responsibility for everything I say. My brother can be my witness." Feng Wu said, "Bring Jun Linshan here." Gao glanced at Emperor Wu. Emperor Wu nodded, and Gao left in a hurry. Jun Linshan had been locked up after he made a fool of himself in front of the crown prince. The real Jun Linyuan glanced at Feng Wu and looked pleased. He didn't expect the girl to be so bold. She had been so intimidating when she questioned Jun Wuxia, and had successfully carried Empress Dugu and Emperor Wu away with her logic. Not everyone could do that. She knows what she's doing, Jun Linyuan thought. Feng Wu had no idea what Jun Linyuan was thinking. All she wanted to do was convince everyone that Jun Wuxia was a liar. That way, no one would believe anything she said. She had been quite successful so far. After all the questioning, Jun Wuxia had pretty much lost her credibility. Jun Linshan soon arrived. Jun Linyuan's presence both infuriated and intimidated him. Feng Wu asked him, "Did you see with your own eyes Feng Wu kill Zhuo Qingyu in the tombs?" On any other day, Jun Linshan would have said yes. But what happened the day before had taught him a lesson. He shook his head and said, "No, I didn't." Feng Wu said, "Tell us what you saw." Jun Linshan felt like a prisoner and wanted to retort. But when he saw the eager look in everyone's eyes, he knew he couldn't stall. He felt speechless. He was also the emperor's son. But why was he being questioned by Jun Linyuan? Why did people think that was the natural way of things? Although he didn't like it, there was nothing he could do. He had to answer the question, if he still wanted to be a prince. In order not to enrage Jun Linyuan, Jun Linshan had to fight back his frustration, and he described what he had seen. He concluded, "My sister was unconscious when Zhuo Qingxian and I arrived, and the culprit was gone. We didn't see who it was." Jun Wuxia shouted, "It was Feng Wu. I saw it." Jun Linshan gave it some thought, then shook his head. "Not necessarily." Jun Wuxia stared at him. "Why won't you take my side?" Jun Linshan wanted to, but he couldn't afford to make any more mistakes. Otherwise, he wouldn't just be imprisoned. He might actually be expelled from the royal family. This time, Empress Dugu supported Jun Linshan. After all, he was a son, while Jun Wuxia was only a daughter. "Wuxia, be reasonable." Empress Dugu gave Jun Wuxia a stern look. Jun Wuxia bit her lower lip, and was speechless. She felt that the world had turned upside down. Chapter 2167 Untitled. Chapter 2167, Untitled. Would Feng Wu stop there? Of course not. She asked Jun Linshan, "Are you saying that neither you nor Zhuo Qingxian could catch up to the killer?" Jun Linshan nodded. Feng Wu smiled. "We all know that Feng Wu is a level 7 spiritual elder. Do you think it could have been her?" That was the million-dollar question. Jun Linshan's cultivation level was much more advanced. Not to mention that Zhuo Qingxian had been with him. If neither of them could catch up to the killer, how could that person be a mere level 7 spiritual elder? It couldn't have been Feng Wu. Jun Linshan shook his head. That person was very fast and almost as capable as we are. Poor Jun Linshan. He didn't know that Feng Wu had had the white fairy as her guide. "Brother!" Jun Wuxia cried out, and stared at Jun Linshan in disbelief. Jun Linshan didn't feel guilty at all. He was only telling the truth. Moreover, why shouldn't he protect his own reputation? But what he said confirmed Feng Wu's claim that Jun Wuxia was a liar. No one would believe anything she said anymore. Since that was the case, her accusation of Feng Wu killing Zhuo Qingyu and trying to kill her would no longer hold. But Jun Wuxia wouldn't give up. She stared at Feng Wu and asked, "If Feng Wu wasn't the killer, then who killed Zhuo Qingyu? Who was the person who tried to kill me?" Immediately, all eyes were on Feng Wu. Feng Wu said calmly, "He was a spy of the Dongseng kingdom." What? Jun Wuxia was dumbfounded. She knew nothing about such spies. She shook her head. No, there was no spy. It had to be Feng Wu. I swear. But Feng Wu ignored her, because no one would listen to Jun Wuxia anymore. Feng Wu said, "The information on the spies of the Dongseng kingdom is classified, but with everything that has happened, I have to tell you. There were Dongseng spies in the tombs." Emperor Wu stared at her. "How can you be so sure?" Feng Wu said, "Because of the seed of the spirit source." Emperor Wu asked, "Who has it now?" Feng Wu glanced at him and said, "I do." Everyone stared at her. So it was the crown prince. That wasn't unexpected. With the crown prince in the tombs, of course, no one else would be able to find it. Feng Wu said, "But that seed was poisoned." Jun Wuxia was furious. She decided that the crown prince was talking nonsense. There was no seed of the spirit source. She summoned up her courage and gave Feng Wu a shove. "Don't you know how to read the past? Take my hair and watch again. I'm not lying." However, the impact made Feng Wu cough loudly. She went on coughing. In the end, she spat out a mouthful of blood. The coughing brought color to her cheeks, making Jun Linyuan look rather vulnerable. Chapter 2168 Untitled. Chapter 2168 Untitled. She looked like she was about to die, and didn't look as intimidating as before. Emperor Wu was shocked. He had never thought that there would be a day when Jun Linyuan would look so weak. "What's wrong with you?" Emperor Wu wasn't used to seeing his son like this, and his voice was full of concern. Jun Wuxia was stunned, and she looked at her hands in disbelief. Did she do that to her brother? The Empress Dowager was the most worried of them all. She had been watching on the side, but somehow things began to go wrong. She threw away the praying beads in her hands and nervously ran toward Feng Wu. "Junjun, what's wrong, Junjun? You're scaring me. Talk to me." "Grandma, Jun Wuxia wanted to explain, but the Empress Dowager glared at her. "Take her down," the Empress Dowager ordered. She held Feng Wu in her arms, fearing that her grandson was going to die. Feng Wu sighed inwardly. The old lady was really biased toward Jun Linyuan, and she wasn't afraid to show it. She didn't want to mislead the old lady, but Jun Linyuan told her to do it, so what choice did she have? She had to play her part. "Ahem. I'm fine. I just need some rest." Feng Wu's face was flushed from all the coughing. "Bring Master Chu here," the Empress Dowager shouted. Soon Master Chu arrived. Everyone watched Master Chu eagerly and wondered what was wrong with the crown prince. Why was he suddenly so fragile? What happened to that formidable crown prince? No one knew what was going on. When the Empress Dowager turned around to see that all the officials were still here, she frowned. Jun Lingyuan's condition had been exposed by Jun Wuxia, which already frustrated the Empress Dowager. However, these people showed no consideration and were still hovering around. The Empress Dowager said angrily, "What are you waiting for? A dinner invitation?" Master Dugu and Master Zhuo looked at each other with bitter smiles, and they left after that. With the two leaders gone, the rest of them didn't dare to stay either, so they scattered as well. However, were they really gone? Would that stop the news from spreading? The Empress Dowager didn't have time to think about anything else. All she cared about was Jun Linyuan. "Master Chu, you're a great doctor. What's wrong with Junjun?" the Empress Dowager asked nervously. Emperor Wu didn't ask any questions, but he listened intently as well, fearing that he might miss out on some important information. Master Chu frowned after he checked Jun Linyuan's pulse. "I think it's the effect of poison, but I'm not very sure. Hold on." Even Master Chu could barely detect the poison, and he couldn't understand why it had such a strong effect on the crown prince. So, he decided to give that task to Feng Wu. Miss Feng Wu, you're an amazing doctor. How about you take a look? Master Chu smiled at Feng Wu. The Empress Dowager frowned when she saw that Feng Wu was also here. Chapter 2169 Untitled. Chapter 2169, Untitled. If she could, she would tell Feng Wu to go away, but she needed her now. Did the Empress Dowager trust Feng Wu's medical skills? In fact, she did, more than anyone else, because the girl had cured her difficult medical condition with a single diagnosis. But she simply didn't like the girl around her grandson, nor did she want her Junjun to pay too much attention to one woman. He was going to be the emperor one day. He needed to focus on the big picture. Her late husband used to say that if Jun Linyuan became the emperor one day, he would unify the entire continent and become the greatest ruler ever. That was one of the reasons why the Empress Dowager doted on Jun Linyuan. She stared at Feng Wu and frowned. But Feng Wu was really Jun Linyuan, and it was the first time that he realized what Feng Wu had to endure. No one liked her, from the royal family to her own family members. The Zhou family couldn't wait to kill her. She didn't do anything, but all these people wanted her dead. She also had to protect her mother, her brother, her maids, and her servants. She was too young to shoulder all the pressure. The crown prince wasn't the sympathetic sort, but he felt sorry for Feng Wu at that moment. He pursed his lips and decided that he would pick on the girl less often in the future. Feng Wu. The Empress Dowager called Feng Wu several times, but she didn't respond, which upset the Empress Dowager. Jun Linyuan heard her this time and looked up. He shifted his gaze and looked at the old lady with cold eyes. The Empress Dowager felt a chill run down her spine. She couldn't understand why the girl looked so intimidating. That look almost reminded her of her grandson. Jun Linyuan walked up to Feng Wu, quickly checked her pulse and said, "She's been poisoned by the magic soul vine." The Empress Dowager wasn't impressed. How could Feng Wu look so careless? She was about to scold Feng Wu when Master Chu said, "That's right. Yes, that's why it felt so familiar. Why didn't I think of that? It's the poison of the magic soul vine." The Empress Dowager frowned and stared at Master Chu. "Are you sure?" Emperor Wu frowned. "The closest military town of the Dongseng Kingdom to us is called Magic Soul Vine City. The magic soul vine is the plant that protects the city. It's a very powerful plant. The entire city is under its protection. It's also highly poisonous, and it's a neurotoxin as well. One can't just shake it off. Once it invades a person's body, it can turn one into an idiot or kill them." Emperor Wu stared at Feng Wu and asked in a trembling voice, "Is that true? Were you really poisoned by the magic soul vine?" This was also Feng Wu's first time hearing of the magic soul vine's origin. Why hadn't Jun Linyuan told her more about it? "Am I going to die?" Feng Wu frowned. Jun Linyuan said grumpily, "Only the stupid will die. You'll live." With that, Feng Wu felt reassured. But not Emperor Wu. Although he usually just shouted at Jun Linyuan, and neither of them would give in. Chapter 2170 Untitled. Chapter 2170 Untitled. If Emperor Wu had to be honest, Jun Linyuan was the son he was the most proud of. At that thought, Emperor Wu asked Jun Linyuan, "Can you treat him?" Jun Linyuan said, "I can try." Emperor Wu suddenly said, "If you can cure the crown prince, I'll let him marry you." "What?" Before Jun Linyuan could say anything, Feng Wu was stunned. Marriage? Between her and Jun Linyuan? She had no intention to do that at all. "That's wonderful news. They'll be a lovely couple." Master Chu laughed. Feng Wu rolled her eyes. No, there would be no couple whatsoever. Before she could protest, the Empress Dowager said impatiently, "We don't have time for this. Get on with the treatment already." Feng Wu said, "That's right." The Empress Dowager patted Feng Wu and was pleased that her grandson was with her. Jun Linyuan glanced at Feng Wu with a meaningful look in his eyes. "How do you treat that poison?" the Empress Dowager asked Jun Linyuan. Jun Linyuan said directly, "Your Majesty, please don't worry. I'll cure her." After that, he took Feng Wu's hand and tried to lead her away. "You disrespectful girl. The Empress Dowager was furious, and she complained to Emperor Wu. I intervened in her marriage, and she's giving me attitude now. I'll never let Junjun marry her. Feng Wu and Jun Linyuan could still hear the Empress Dowager's angry complaint as they walked away. Feng Wu didn't say anything. Jun Linyuan looked unhappy when they returned to his place. But Feng Wu failed to notice it. Not only that, she also said happily, "Can you tell me now why you wanted me to pretend that I'm sick? My body is the one that was poisoned. Did you expose yourself on purpose, so that people could come to kill you?" She shrugged. "To be honest with you, I can't master your spiritual essence yet, and I'm terrible at exerting it. I can't do any stances, nor can I carry your sky destroyer." She couldn't stop complaining. She felt like a 3-year-old in front of an open vault. Although it was filled with treasure, she couldn't carry any away with her. She didn't realize how unhappy Jun Linyuan was, and was lost in her imagination. "You let out the news deliberately. Aren't you worried that people from the Dongseng Kingdom will try to kill you? Everyone knows that you're like the chosen one, and will unify the continent one day. If you really become the emperor, how desperate would the Dongseng Kingdom feel? Therefore, compared with killing your father, they would rather assassinate you. With you dead, the Zhenghua Empire won't have a future. If I were from the Dongseng Kingdom, I'd try my best to kill you. Now that I'm in your body, I want to hide from as many people as possible, but you're trying to tell people that you're weak. Do you have a death wish?" The Crown Prince glanced at Feng Wu and snorted. That made Feng Wu angry. Chapter 2171 Untitled. Chapter 2171 Untitled. I'm only analyzing the situation for you. Why are you angry? Jun Linyuan, I didn't know that you were so petty. Jun Linyuan's face darkened, and he rose to his feet. That wouldn't do. But Feng Wu felt that begging him all the time was too humiliating. Therefore, Feng Wu stopped trying. She let Jun Linyuan walk away, and followed him like his tail. As long as there were less than 10 steps between them, things would be fine. Jun Linyuan walked angrily in the front, and Feng Wu casually followed him. But that wasn't how Jun Linyuan felt. He was so angry that he wanted to kick the girl in the butt. However, the cool breeze cleared his head. Turning around, he saw his little tail. When he quickened his pace, she jogged behind him. When he slowed down, she strolled casually. They were exactly 10 steps apart. Was she worried that he would run off? At that thought, the Crown Prince didn't feel frustrated anymore. He slowed down so that she could catch up to him. As expected, the girl quickly ran to his side. If she had a tail, she would be wagging it now. He was right. As soon as Jun Linyuan stopped, Feng Wu quickly ran to his side and grinned at him. Jun Linyuan wanted to squeeze her cheeks, but when he raised his hands, he realized that he was looking at his own face. Seeing that adorable look on his face, the proud Crown Prince couldn't stand it. I have to get my body back as soon as possible, Jun Linyuan thought. They headed south. It was an uneventful journey, almost as if Jun Linyuan hadn't revealed anything important to his enemies. But Feng Wu knew that it was only the calm before the storm. For her, the most important thing right now was finding the spies, since they were almost back at the imperial capital. The 9th trial was almost over. Feng Wu was so excited that she thought her heart was going to jump out of her chest. However, Jun Linyuan didn't know that. Otherwise, he would probably want to kill her. We're almost back at the capital. Why aren't they making any moves yet? Feng Wu pouted and looked at Jun Linyuan. We've entered Jingyang province now, Jun Linyuan said. This is the Zhua family's territory, so we have to be very careful from now on. The Zhua family? Feng Wu was confused. Aren't they in the imperial capital? Jun Linyuan shook his head. The empire consists of 13 provinces, which are secretly controlled by 9 major clans and 4 forces respectively. The Zhua family is in charge of Jingyang. Feng Wu said, Is the Zhua family that powerful? Jun Linyuan nodded. What you see in the capital is just the tip of the iceberg. The real Zhua family is well connected beyond your imagination. Of course, the provinces are still controlled by the empire, But the big families have been developing their power in the provinces over so many generations that they have fingers in every pie through marriage. The Zhou family is one such family. Feng Wu asked. What about the other 12 provinces? Chapter 2172 Switchback. Chapter 2172 Switchback. Jun Linyuan nodded. Feng Wu asked. And His Majesty just let their power grow? Jun Linyuan said. Old habits die hard. Feng Wu knew that when Jun Linyuan became the emperor, things would change for the big families. Jun Linyuan said. You'll have time to find out more about that. We're about to reach One Line Cliff. It's a dangerous spot because there are mountains on both sides, and the ravine is only wide enough for a single carriage to go through. If someone stands on top of the mountains and throws big rocks down at us, it'll be very dangerous. The look on Feng Wu's face turned serious. Jun Linyuan said, I think someone is going to take the bait. Hearing that they would be expecting a battle, Feng Wu clenched her fists. Seeing this, Jun Linyuan smiled. What? Are you scared? Feng Wu rolled her eyes at him. Of course I am. If an assassination is really going to happen, I'm the one they're going to attack. I can't fight like you, and they'll kill me. Jun Linyuan studied her face. Suddenly, he pulled her to his side and whispered, If we hadn't swapped bodies, would you have stayed by my side? Thinking of the 9th trial, Feng Wu immediately said, Yes, I would. Good. Jun Linyuan leaned closer and kissed her gently on the mouth. Feng Wu's head spun. Then, wait, she looked down at her hands and saw that they were fair and soft. They were her own hands. Wow! She immediately took out her mirror. The face she saw in the mirror was that of a pretty girl. Feng Wu was thrilled. She was herself again. She didn't know how to describe her excitement. Roar! She wanted to run out of the carriage to celebrate her recovery, but she couldn't. She was still on the 9th trial. She had to stay within 10 steps of Jun Linyuan. No one knew how much she had to endure because of that. But today was her lucky day. Ding! The fairy said, The 9th trial is over. Wow! Feng Wu was over the moon. Hearing that, Feng Wu ran out of the carriage, jumped onto Feng Sun's horse and dashed off. The wind chilled her to the bone, but she still opened her arms in excitement. This was what freedom felt like. Without the 9th trial, Feng Wu felt that the sky was her limit. She had never been an extrovert, but being forced to stay close to Jun Linyuan was still more than she could take. This entire time, she didn't have time to go back to her own tent, and had no idea how Chaoga and Xiuling were doing. Because Jun Linyuan was the crown prince, his carriage was at the front. Feng Wu's carriage was near the back of the convoy. She wanted to see Chaoga now, but the road was too narrow for her to go through. In the end, she had to get off the horse and go back to Jun Linyuan's carriage. Chapter 2173 Untitled. Chapter 2173 Untitled. Jun Linyuan looked into Feng Wu's eyes and poked her head. You lazy butt. Why didn't you want to run around before? Feng Wu glared at Jun Linyuan. Who are you calling a lazy butt? Jun Linyuan found her amusing. Aren't I right? You hardly ever left the carriage. Feng Wu wanted to smack Jun Linyuan on the head. Why did he think that happened? He had been cultivating in the carriage all the time. With the 9th trial still running, where could she possibly go? But she couldn't tell him that. Jun Linyuan looked at the pouting girl and was pleased. You've been following me everywhere. Anyone would think that you really are my maid. Just then the carriage stopped moving. Feng Wu stuck out her head and saw that they had reached a clearing that was suitable to make camp. Emperor Wu seemed to have noticed that the journey was getting dangerous and wanted to slow down. Feng Wu didn't care about that. She immediately started packing. She had accumulated quite a few things here, since she had lived with Jun Linyuan for many days. The crown prince was surprised when he saw the girl start putting things into a bundle. What are you doing? Feng Wu tied up the bundle, threw it over her shoulder, and raised her chin. She waved goodbye at Jun Linyuan and walked away without looking back at him. The crown prince was shocked. Was she really leaving? Jun Linyuan shook his head. No, she had done this before, but she always ran back to him before she took 10 steps. Therefore, he decided that she wouldn't leave him. At that thought, he went on reading his book and didn't try to stop her. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She must have returned. But when he looked up, Feng Wu was nowhere to be seen. He was usually a calm man, but he was shocked. Wow, Boss Jun. I saw little Feng Wu run away with a bundle. Did you have a fight? Feng Sun came to Jun Linyuan as soon as he got off his horse. No matter how hard Feng Wu tried to mimic Jun Linyuan, she still wasn't him, and people would notice the difference. Feng Sun thought that Boss Jun had been much more friendly recently and wasn't as easily offended. Therefore, he took every chance to strike up a conversation. But today, as soon as he stepped into the tent, he realized that something had changed. That serious and strict Boss Jun was back. As expected, the first thing Jun Linyuan said was, "Feng Sun, do you want to get your ass kicked?" Feng Sun cleared his throat and dashed off. "I'll go find us some fruit." While Feng Sun fled from Jun Linyuan, Feng Wu went back to her own tent. People had already started gossiping. "Look, Feng Wu has moved out of His Royal Highness's tent. That should teach you a lesson. Don't be a second Feng Wu." "What do you mean? The Feng clan doesn't know how to properly bring up their children. That girl has been following His Royal Highness around without permission. That'll only ruin her reputation." Chapter 2174 Untitled. Chapter 2174, Untitled. I heard that she accompanied His Royal Highness around the clock, even at night. If she keeps doing that, she might get pregnant soon. She can't do that. His Royal Highness doesn't have a wife yet. A maid can't give His Royal Highness his first child. Feng Wu frowned as she listened. "Shut up, all of you." Chaoga ran out of her tent with a sword in her hand. She then threatened the gossiping women. "If I hear one more word out of your mouth, I'm going to kill you." Of course, these women were only maids and servants. The noble ladies wouldn't have worded it so explicitly. Everyone seemed to know how fearless Chaoga was. When she came out with the sword, those people scattered immediately. "Stop. Stop right there. I'm going to kill you." Duan Chaoga stomped her foot. "Ha ha ha." Feng Wu saw this from behind a tree and laughed loudly. "Who's there?" Chaoga looked in her direction. She was excited to see Feng Wu at first, but when Feng Wu wanted to run to her side, Chaoga snorted, threw the sword over her shoulder, and stormed off. Shocked, Feng Wu ran after her. Chaoga only picked up speed. Feng Wu grabbed her sleeve and said, "Duan Chaoga, what are you doing?" Chaoga brushed her hand off and walked even faster. Feng Wu didn't say anything. It seemed that Chaoga was really angry, and she had every reason to be. To finish the 9th trial, Feng Wu had been staying with Jun Linyuan the whole time and hadn't seen Chaoga even once. Even if she did see her, she had to follow Jun Linyuan when he walked away. Feng Wu didn't like how Jun Linyuan acted, and she understood why Chaoga was angry at her. However, Chaoga still cared about her. Otherwise, she wouldn't have defended her. At that thought, Feng Wu smiled and quickly followed her. "Hey Chaoga, are you really mad at me?" Chaoga didn't answer. Feng Wu quietly tied their sleeves together. When Chaoga tried to throw her off again, she saw that their sleeves had been tied together, and was frustrated. Glaring at Feng Wu, she wanted to cut off her sleeve. Feng Wu said, "Do that and we won't be friends anymore." Hearing that, Chaoga glared at Feng Wu and grunted. Feng Wu smiled. She knew that Chaoga wasn't really angry. She was only being grumpy. "I had a hard time as well." Feng Wu tried to explain to Chaoga. I don't like Jun Linyuan." "You don't?" Chaoga smirked. "Then why were you following him around and staying with him? You didn't even come back here." She poked Feng Wu's forehead. "You're a decent girl. Do you want to ruin your reputation?" Chapter 2175 Untitled. Chapter 2175 Untitled. Yes, you're engaged, and that marriage agreement still counts. But can't you tell that no one from the royal family approves of it? I don't think your uncle will let it happen either. As for His Royal Highness, do you think he'll treat you like this if he really thinks of you as his future wife? He doesn't respect you at all. Feng Wu couldn't retort, and could only listen to Chaoga in silence. Because she knew that Chaoga only said those things because she cared about her. Chaoga lowered her voice when she finally got tired from talking. Feng Wu took out a bottle of water and put it in her hand. Here, have some water. Chaoga was still angry, but Feng Wu ignored her frustration. She unplugged the bottle and made Chaoga drink it, splashing water everywhere. I can drink the water on my own. Chaoga didn't know what to do with Feng Wu when she was like this. No matter what she said, Feng Wu would only smile at her. She couldn't stay mad at Feng Wu and had said all she needed to say. Feng Wu took Chaoga's hand and said seriously, "Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Right now, I need Jun Lingyuan's help." Duan, Chaoga said, "Really?" Feng Wu chuckled. "We grew up together. You know me. I never force myself to do things I don't want to." Chaoga tilted her head and realized that Feng Wu was right. Feng Wu had been a smart girl since she was little, and no one had ever been able to make her do things against her will. People often didn't know what she was up to, but in the end, she would always surprise everyone. Was she cooking up her own plan again? Seeing that Feng Wu wasn't being forced to do anything, Chaoga was pleased. "I know you won't let me down." Feng Wu patted her on the head and said, "Let's go see Qiuling. I'd like to check your cultivation level." Qiuling didn't lose her temper like Chaoga had. That was because she knew Feng Wu better and had been with her for much longer. Therefore, she knew that Feng Wu would only follow her own rules. But that didn't stop her from worrying. "Miss Wu, please send a message next time. Otherwise, we'll be so worried." Feng Wu scratched her head. She had been so busy with the revival list that she had forgotten to do so. She told Qiuling about it. "So, that was why you were with the Crown Prince? To solve the case?" Chaoga looked enlightened. "You should have told us earlier. That way, I wouldn't have been mad at you." Feng Wu cleared her throat. Solving the case was the 10th trial, and staying by Jun Lingyuan's side was the 9th trial. She blamed the fairy, no Master Linghu, for everything that had happened. Feng Wu said, "After its retreat, the Dongseng Kingdom left behind a revival list. Everyone on that list is extremely dangerous. You're all my friends, so be careful. I may not have time to look after you." Chaoga patted her chest proudly. "You don't need to. I can do a lot of things now. Guess what level I am now?" Chapter 2176 Untitled. Chapter 2176 Untitled. Both Chaoga and Qiuling had made great achievements in the tombs, almost as great as finding the seed of the spirit source. Feng Wu was surprised by what she saw as well. Qiuling was a level 8 spiritual elder, and so was Chaoga. They had made such great progress. Feng Wu herself was only a level 7 spiritual elder. Duan, Chaoga said, "Xiao Wu, why are you still level 7? I'm level 8 already." Feng Wu didn't know what to say. "Miss, please don't worry." Qiuling tried to comfort her. Feng Wu examined her body and smiled. "No, I'm not worried at all." Jun Lingyuan hadn't been wasting time. Not only did he repair her body, he had also refined the seed of the spirit source for her. There were several sealed white balls in Feng Wu's dantian. There were 10 in total. She knew better than anyone else that everything was ready. All she needed to do was find some time to sit down and absorb those balls. To Feng Wu's surprise, she found a sapling in her mind. It wasn't much bigger than a bud, and she couldn't tell what it was. But she had a feeling that it would turn into a pleasant surprise for her. She just knew it. She wanted to say something, but she heard footsteps outside. "Miss Feng Wu, His Royal Highness urgently wants to see you." It was Zhao Jia, the guard whom Jun Lingyuan had just recruited. Feng Wu would have refused to go if Jun Lingyuan had sent another guard, but Zhao Jia. She rose to her feet and told the two girls, "I'm off. We'll talk after we get back to the imperial capital. I'll have a surprise for you." The surprise was none other than the White Fairy. With the White Fairy guarding her home, Feng Wu would have nothing to worry about. Jun Lingyuan's tent was set up on the third nicest spot in the campsite. Emperor Wu had the best spot at first, but he gave it to the Empress Dowager and chose the next best instead. As the Crown Prince, Jun Lingyuan was next in line in terms of priority. When Feng Wu returned, Jun Linyuan was reading a book, and the person next to him was absent-mindedly flipping through a book as well. Your Majesty. Feng Wu was surprised to see Emperor Wu. He frowned when he saw Feng Wu. He then ignored her and turned to Jun Linyuan. About what you said earlier, is it true? Jun Linyuan gave an indifferent nod. That almost made Emperor Wu lose his temper. Jun Linyuan, have you lost your mind? Do you know what that token symbolizes? He bellowed. He had felt sorry for Jun Linyuan for a while because of his injury, but this defiant son soon got on his nerves again. Feng Wu didn't want to get involved, so she kept her distance and tried not to get noticed. When Emperor Wu saw Feng Wu, he lost his temper again. He wanted to leave the tent, but he only took 2 steps before he turned around and shouted at Jun Linyuan. That position is the head of the espionage department. Is that not good enough for you? Chapter 2177 Untitled. Chapter 2177, Untitled. Jun Linyuan looked up from his book and glanced at Emperor Wu. The espionage department? Is that supposed to be impressive? Emperor Wu was furious. How dare you belittle the espionage department? Jun Linyuan smirked. Emperor Wu stared at him. Don't tell me you want Qin Mo's job. Jun Linyuan said indifferently. Qin Mo's job? Emperor Wu shouted. What? Do you want my throne then? Jun Linyuan rolled his eyes at him. That's the toughest job in the world. Feel free to keep it. I don't want it. Emperor Wu bellowed. You. Jun Linyuan looked at him helplessly. You'll get mad at me if I say that I'm interested, but you're still angry when I tell you that I'm not. Father, what answer do you want to hear? That rendered Emperor Wu speechless. However, he wouldn't admit his defeat. Instead, he stared at Jun Linyuan and shouted even more loudly. Where's the token? Did you lose it? Jun Linyuan darted an indifferent look at Feng Wu. Feng Wu took the hint and immediately handed the token to Emperor Wu. Emperor Wu looked from Jun Linyuan to Feng Wu and back to Jun Linyuan. Did you give the token to the girl? Jun Linyuan said. You gave it to me, so I think I can decide whom I can give it to. Father, please don't worry. Don't worry? If I don't worry, you'll give the entire empire away. Emperor Wu shouted. He realized that whenever he quarreled with Jun Linyuan, he would end up throwing a tantrum, while Jun Linyuan remained perfectly calm. Emperor Wu rubbed his forehead. What do you want? Jun Linyuan frowned and glanced at him. Isn't it obvious? Emperor Wu said. Don't tell me that you want to give that job to this girl. You do realize that the head of the espionage department is equivalent to a lieutenant general in the army. This girl hasn't even graduated from Imperial College yet. Even if she can get into the Ministry of War one day, she'll start as a captain and work her way up. But you're going to make her a general now. Are you kidding me? Hearing that, Feng Wu didn't like the token in her hands too much. Jun Linyuan said indifferently. It's not time for that yet. I only gave her the token so that she can work on the case more easily. What? Emperor Wu couldn't believe his ears. What do you mean by yet? Are you saying that given time, you'll make her a general? Jun Linyuan shrugged. So what? The girl had more than enough talent for that job. But he omitted that part so that his father wouldn't pass out from rage. And did you say something about her working on the case? Emperor Wu glared at Jun Linyuan. Are you going to let her solve the case? Jun Linyuan nodded matter-of-factly. Emperor Wu thought he was going to pass out. He pointed at Jun Linyuan and shouted. Do you know how threatening the Dongseng Kingdom's plan is to us? Chapter 2178 Untitled. Chapter 2178, Untitled. If anything goes wrong, you'll alert them, and they'll go into hiding. When that happens, it'll be next to impossible to catch them again. I can't bear the thought of having those rats crawling around in my empire. Jun Linyuan said. That's why we must lure them out. Emperor Wu asked. What do you mean? Jun Linyuan said. You'll see when the spies are caught. When the spies were caught, Emperor Wu snorted. It wasn't that he hadn't run investigations. In fact, he had borrowed Qin Mo's men already. However, the lengthy investigation turned up nothing in the end. Seeing that Jun Linyuan wouldn't tell him anything, Emperor Wu became even more frustrated. He threw a dirty look at Feng Wu. If you don't know what to do, don't get in the way. Just because you have the token doesn't mean you get to order people around. Without my recognition, you're just a common girl. He then turned to leave. His maids and eunuchs quickly followed him. Emperor Wu mumbled, "Even heroes fall for beauties. Jun Linyuan, you're no exception." Once Emperor Wu was gone, Feng Wu handed Jun Linyuan the token and said grumpily, "Take it. It's not like I want it. With it, you won't need to kneel when you meet other government officials," Jun Linyuan said indifferently. That was very appealing. Feng Wu was intrigued, but such an occasion wouldn't happen very often, and she might not need to use it after all. Therefore, Feng Wu still wanted to give the token back. Jun Linyuan then said something else. "It'll protect the people you want to protect, at least on the surface." Feng Wu's eyes lit up. That was right. The espionage department had a lot of guards, and with this token, she would be able to command them all. People would fight head over heels for this token. At that thought, Feng Wu put it into her pocket. Jun Linyuan smiled a little, but he covered it well, and Feng Wu didn't see it. When Feng Wu walked out of the tent, "Miss Feng Wu," a voice rang out next to her. She looked up and saw Zhao Jia. She remembered this man. Jun Linyuan had recruited 4 guards. 3 of them were taciturn men that would only speak when they were asked. But Zhao Jia was different. He was very talkative, and would ask Feng Wu for little favors from time to time. Because of that, Feng Wu knew him well. "Miss Feng, may I ask for leave?" Zhao Jia asked in a pleading tone. Feng Wu glanced at him. "What for?" Zhao Jia said, "I'm from Jingyang province, and my hometown is nearby. I want to take some time off and pay my family a visit." Feng Wu looked up. "You live in this area?" Zhao Jia said, "Yes. I haven't been back here in 5 years, so I thought I could go visit my parents while we're here." Feng Wu frowned. "Aren't you from the Zhao family? It's a rather big clan. How come your family lives out here?" Zhao Jia smiled wryly. "Miss Wu, I'm only from a minor branch of the Zhao family. Because I have some talent. The major branch took me in when I was little. I learned my martial arts there, so people see me as a member of that big clan." Chapter 2179 Untitled. Chapter 2179, Untitled. Feng Wu nodded. "I see," Zhao Jia said then. Feng Wu nodded. "If you can come back before we set out tomorrow morning, sure, go ahead." Zhao Jia looked pleasantly surprised. "Thank you, my lady." Feng Wu waved him off. "Don't worry about it. By the way, since you grew up here, tell me, what do you do for fun around here? This journey has been so exhausting. It would be great if there's a waterfall nearby." Zhao Jia said, "Miss Wu, are you looking for a waterfall? We don't have that here. But there's one place that may interest you." Feng Wu raised an eyebrow. "Really? Tell me about it." Zhao Jia nodded and said, "To the northeast of the cliff is a hot spring. It's steaming hot all year round, and is very beneficial for one's health. Plus, it's in a great location. It's right up the cliff, and the water levels off with the side of the cliff, so that you can't see the edge of the spring. You can enjoy the view of everything down below." Feng Wu said, "Aren't you describing an edgeless pool?" Zhao Jia said, "An edgeless pool." He thought about that name and found it very accurate. "Yes, that's exactly what it is." Feng Wu asked, "It's not easy to find, is it?" Zhao Jia nodded. "That's true. If I hadn't gotten lost in the mountains when I was little, I wouldn't have found it either." Feng Wu rubbed her chin and murmured, "His Royal Highness coughs a lot. Sometimes, the coughing even keeps him awake at night. What if the hot spring can cure him? That way, maybe Her Majesty and His Majesty won't dislike me so much." Feng Wu made sure that she was just loud enough for Zhao Jia to hear. She then waved at Zhao Jia. "I don't like too much noise. Do you know what I mean?" Of course Zhao Jia did. He immediately said, "Would you like me to take you there? I'll go back home after that. I won't tell a soul." Feng Wu said, "What good will that do? I don't have any health problems. I need to think of a way to get the crown prince there. But His Royal Highness isn't easily persuaded. But I know what to do. Wait here." Feng Wu then walked into the tent. The look on Zhao Jia's face changed immediately. The smile was gone, and he was smirking. Feng Wu was gone for quite a while. He was already wondering if Feng Wu had failed, when she came back out. She waved at Zhao Jia. Wait for me halfway up the mountain. If Jun Wuxia and Jun Linshan see us, they'll try to take the hot spring. I don't want to make a fuss about it. Zhao Jia had to follow her orders, so he nodded and quickly went up the mountain. After he left, Feng Wu turned around and saw Jun Linyuan. Come inside. He then pulled her into the tent. Feng Wu was perplexed. Why was the crown prince suddenly so serious? Before she realized it, something cool and soft hit her on the forehead. Feng Wu grabbed it and frowned. What's this black thing? Jun Linyuan didn't explain anything. He just ordered, take off your clothes. Chapter 2180 Untitled. Chapter 2180, Untitled. Feng Wu was alarmed and stared at him. What? Jun Linyuan stood up and looked down at her. She looked tiny in comparison. He shook his head and said grumpily, What can I possibly do to you? It's soft armor. Just put it on. Soft armor. Feng Wu's eyes lit up. What exactly is it? Wow! Just then, she heard someone cry out at the door. Feng Sun ran into the room and snatched the soft armor out of Feng Wu's hands. He shouted, Boss Jun, this isn't fair. You care so much about this armor and won't even let me touch it. But now, you're giving it to her. I can't believe it. Feng Sun sounded jealous. Jun Linyuan cast a stern look at Feng Sun. Shut up. Feng Wu examined the soft armor and saw that it was quite small. It was obviously for a woman. An idea struck her, and she suddenly asked, Who did this soft armor belong to? Well, Feng Sun looked up at Jun Linyuan and fell silent. Feng Wu could feel the temperature around her drop. She felt that she had said the wrong thing. But what was it about this soft armor? Did it have something to do with Jun Linyuan's past? Somehow Feng Wu grew curious. Put it on. Jun Linyuan cast a stern look at Feng Sun and gave Feng Wu the order. He then led Feng Sun out of the tent. Feng Sun asked Jun Linyuan as they walked, You're giving the soft armor to her. Are you ready to move on then? Are you finally over it? He kept babbling until Jun Linyuan told him to shut up. Feng Sun said, Fine. Feng Wu didn't realize how tightly she had clenched her fists. Even her knuckles had turned white. What was the story behind the armor? Feng Wu shook her head to get rid of the thought. Her top priority now was to catch the Dongseng spies and finish the 10th trial. After this, she would only have 2 tasks left. Once she finished all 12 tasks, she would have the second broken star piece. There were only 4 in total. She was getting closer to her goal. Her beautiful master was going to wake up soon, and that should be the happiest thing. But somehow, she felt a heavy weight on her chest and couldn't smile anymore. Feng Wu put on the soft armor, rubbed her stiff face, and put on a smile. She then walked out of the tent. Outside, Jun Linyuan and Feng Sun were ready. Feng Sun greeted Feng Wu with a smile. Look after yourself. Don't get hurt, okay? He ran away after that, fearing that Feng Wu might ask him questions. Feng Wu pretended that she didn't notice anything and only asked Jun Linyuan. Does Feng Sun know what he's doing? Jun Linyuan said, I know what I'm doing. Isn't that enough? Feng Wu chuckled. You're right. The 2 of them then walked up the mountain. Earlier, there had been something inexplicable between them. But now, Jun Linyuan could tell that something had changed in Feng Wu. Chapter 2181 Untitled. Chapter 2181 Untitled. The girl had been very lively and wouldn't stop asking questions. It felt as if nothing could strike her down. But now she was very quiet. She would still smile back at him, but it wouldn't be a wholehearted smile. He felt that they were only strangers walking past each other on the street. He asked her, Are you nervous? Feng Wu looked perplexed. He wrapped his hand around Feng Wu's. Your hand's cold. Jun Linyuan frowned. What are you worried about? Everything's been planned out. When the fighting starts, hide behind Feng. Feng Wu shook her head. I'm not nervous. Jun Linyuan pinched her nose. Are you sure? Feng Wu beamed at him. On the contrary, I'm very excited. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. That was a genuine smile. Jun Linyuan felt his whole world light up. He rubbed Feng Wu's head. Good. It's going to be great. Zhao Jia was waiting for them halfway up the mountain. Your Royal Highness, Miss Wu. Zhao Jia smiled obsequiously. Feng Wu looked like she couldn't suppress her excitement. Take us there. I want to see the edgeless pool. I'll sit in the hot spring and enjoy the view. It's going to be so exciting. Zhao Jia smiled and said, I'm glad that you like the idea. Are you sure this is going to be all right? Shall I bring more guards? We can't afford to have anything happen to His Royal Highness. Feng Wu glared at him. Nonsense. I'll kill you if you tell another soul. Zhao Jia smiled wryly. But my lady. Feng Wu waved him off in an arrogant way. If news gets out, what if His Majesty wants to take a bath? We won't be able to use the pool then. So, just keep your mouth shut and do as you're told. Zhao Jia had no choice but to say yes. Feng Wu saw the box he was carrying over his shoulder and asked curiously, What's that on your back? Zhao Jia whispered, It's red monkey wine. Feng Wu asked, What's that? Zhao Jia gloated. The so-called monkey wine comes from the fruit which the monkeys stash away for the winter. However, if they have enough food during that season, they'll forget about all the fruit they stored away. The fruit ferments in the tree holes and becomes fruit wine, which is what we call monkey wine. Red monkey wine is made from the fruit collected by red monkeys. They're the king of the monkeys, and they pick the best fruit. Needless to say, their fruit makes the best wine. You can find the normal monkey wine in other places, but the red monkey wine is our specialty. Zhao Jia patted the wine bottle on his shoulder and chuckled. You can drink this wine as you sit in the hot spring and enjoy the view. It'll be wonderful. Wow! Feng Wu grew very excited. She took Zhao Jia's hand and said, I didn't know that you could be so considerate. I'll thank you later. I can't wait to jump into the hot spring. Chapter 2182 Untitled. Chapter 2182, Untitled. While Feng Wu jumped around in excitement, Jun Linyuan only frowned, as if he was hesitating. Feng Wu took his arm and smiled at him. My dear Crown Prince, just give it a go. If you don't like it, we can leave right away. How does that sound? Jun Linyuan said sternly, This is the last time. He then started coughing. Feng Wu nodded immediately. Sure. The last time? At an angle where no one could see him, Zhao Jia smirked. Soon, he led them to the hot spring he was talking about. Feng Wu could see the steam from 100 meters away, and the view was surreal. She tugged at Jun Linyuan and said in excitement, Look! Such a hot spring is so wonderful on a cold day like this. She was even more excited when they moved closer. Zhao Jia, you have great taste. Feng Wu pointed at the mountains in the distance. This is perfect. Zhao Jia thought. If you like this place so much, I'm sure you won't mind being buried here. He said hesitantly, So I. Feng Wu waved him off. Off you go. You should be with your family now. I won't keep you any longer. Zhao Jia said, But. Feng Wu said, Stop nagging. Be gone already. She finally got rid of Zhao Jia. She and Jun Linyuan were the only ones left. Feng Wu really was going to jump into the hot spring, but Jun Linyuan stopped her. She looked back at Jun Linyuan in bewilderment. Jun Linyuan gave her a warning wink. Feng Wu immediately took the hint. She lowered her voice and asked, Is Zhao Jia still around? She had buried her face in Jun Linyuan's arms, so no one could see what she was talking about even if they could read lips. The Crown Prince nodded. Feng Wu asked, What should we do then? The Crown Prince asked, What do you mean? Feng Wu gestured between the two of them. The two of us. Jun Linyuan kept his unblinking gaze on her and asked, Do you want to know if we're playing a couple? Feng Wu mumbled, I think to him, I'm more like a bed-warming maid. Jun Linyuan wanted to laugh, and he had a hard time fighting it back. Ahem. He coughed into his fist and said, Good. You know what you're doing. Feng Wu shook him in frustration. Hey, Jun Linyuan said. Since you're saying that you're playing a bed-warming maid, what should you do now? Feng Wu stared at him. Are you telling me to play the maid? Jun Linyuan shrugged. Feng Wu said, fine. So be it. This is the last time anyway. She was about to take off Jun Linyuan's belt by force. He reminded her, I believe I'm still a patient. Feng Wu cleared her throat. Fine, she would be gentle. She gently took off his clothes until he only had on his undergarments. She then helped him into the hot spring. Feng Wu only took off her robe before jumping in. Chapter 2183 Untitled. Chapter 2183, Untitled. When Feng Wu got in, the crown prince had already chosen his spot. He had chosen the perfect spot to savor the view, and all Feng Wu could see was his smooth back. Feng Wu looked perplexed. Jun Linyuan looked over his shoulder. You're a maid, so do whatever a maid is supposed to do. Do you want him to see through our plan? Feng Wu didn't know what to say. She suddenly had a feeling that Jun Linyuan wasn't here to catch Dongseng spies, but to enjoy the experience. Poor Feng Wu. She had to work as a real maid now. And that wasn't all she needed to do. To her embarrassment, Jun Linyuan grabbed her and pulled her to his side. Feng Wu slipped and fell face down into the water. Jun Linyuan didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. He quickly scooped Feng Wu out of the pool. Hey Jun Linyuan, what are you doing? Feng Wu stared at him in disbelief. She had a feeling that he was taking advantage of her. Why are you running away? Jun Linyuan picked her up so that she could face him. Feng Wu pressed her hands against his chest and stared at him. Hey, Jun Linyuan, you've crossed the line. Jun Linyuan shook his head. Don't you get it? Feng Wu was confused. What do you mean? He said. Why do you think Zhao Jia and his men are still waiting? They've been preparing for this for a very long time. Feng Wu asked why. Jun Linyuan asked. Do you think they're not ready? Feng Wu shook her head. They've been working on it for at least a month. This hot spring is newly dug, but they've given it a distressed look and put water in it. They've gone into so much detail. What more do they need to prepare? Jun Linyuan said, That's right. So what are they waiting for? As he spoke, he brushed a lock of hair off Feng Wu's forehead. Feng Wu had a faint idea, but she found it too ridiculous, so she kept silent. What are they waiting for? She looked innocently at Jun Linyuan. Jun Linyuan had no idea that Feng Wu wasn't a real 13-year-old. She had seen pretty much everything in her previous life. He studied Feng Wu for a while. Suddenly he blushed. Feng Wu was pleased to see Jun Linyuan's ears turning red. She had thought that Jun Linyuan was an experienced man, but as it turned out, he was an innocent virgin. Feng Wu looked perfectly innocent as she looked into Jun Linyuan's eyes. What do you mean? What are they waiting for? Jun Linyuan didn't say anything. Feng Wu went on teasing him. Your Royal Highness, please tell me. Jun Linyuan was no saint. Not to mention that the girl he liked was in his arms. When Feng Wu realized the danger, he bent down and kissed her on the mouth. Feng Wu froze on the spot. At that moment, she felt like smacking her own forehead. She regretted having teased Jun Linyuan. She had dropped a rock on her own foot. She could feel Jun Linyuan's hot breath on her ear. They're waiting for us to do this. Feng Wu was so frustrated that she flushed from head to toe. Jun Linyuan said in a hoarse voice, They believe that we'll be careless when we do something like this, so that's when they'll find their opportunity. Chapter 2184 Untitled. Chapter 2184, Untitled. As soon as he said that, they heard a whooshing sound. Arrows rained down on the hot spring. They're here. Jun Linyuan pulled Feng Wu behind him and grabbed a robe. He then waved it around so fast that no arrows could touch them. They're quite capable. You won't be able to take the arrows. And the soft armor can only protect the top half of your body, but not the rest. Jun Linyuan frowned. Dive into the water and sneak off. Go find Feng. Feng Wu knew that Jun Linyuan wasn't ill, so she nodded and dove into the hot spring. But right at that moment, boom, an explosion went off nearby. Feng Wu raised her head and checked the surroundings, but she couldn't see where that sound came from. She felt that the danger was very close. Her life was under threat. She was still looking for the source when she heard Jun Linyuan say, "It came from beneath the hot spring." He then threw her out of the pool. Feng Wu flew through the air toward Feng. But at that moment, a man in black came out of nowhere and struck down at Feng. It was such a terrifying power. If Ranmil were here, she would have recognized the man. It was none other than the person who had taught her the fierce face dance. Feng Wu had no idea that her plan would draw out the man behind everything. The mysterious man went on exchanging blows with Feng. They moved so fast that Feng Wu couldn't follow their strikes. But she didn't have time to worry about other people. Because she was in danger as well. Their plan was to have Feng Wu hide behind Feng, which would keep her safe. The Dongseng spies wouldn't be able to touch her then. But things took an unexpected turn. Feng had to fight the mysterious man, and neither could easily defeat the other. Jun Linyuan leaped up, trying to get to Feng Wu. But suddenly, a masked man attacked Jun Linyuan. The man was tall, strong, and very capable. Jun Linyuan realized almost immediately that he was facing a tough enemy. Who was this man? Jun Linyuan frowned. As soon as Feng Wu landed, she heard the whooshing sound again. Arrows were coming at her. She noticed that the men in black seemed to be divided into two groups. Were there other participants apart from the assassins of the Dongseng Kingdom? Who were they? But she didn't have time to figure that out now. She had to run for her life. Meanwhile, in the campsite, explosions went off one after another, and all hell broke loose. Luckily, Emperor Wu was very decisive, and things soon settled down. Half of the guards rushed toward the woods. Seeing the flames in the mountains, Emperor Wu scowled. It was the same as 13 years ago. Countless soldiers went to war, but they kept losing, and the Dongseng Kingdom drove into the Junhua Empire like a spear. Chapter 2185 Untitled. Chapter 2185 Untitled. 13 years later, the Dongseng Kingdom was trying to overthrow the Junhua Empire again. They had made such a big mess with so few people. Not to mention that the Junhua Empire had been prepared for an attack. Your Majesty, His Royal Highness isn't in great shape. What should we do? Will he be able to get out safely? Seeing the Empress Dowager coming their way, Empress Duga deliberately said those words. As expected, the Empress Dowager panicked when she heard those words. What are you waiting for? Send someone to help Junjun. She glared at Emperor Wu. Emperor Wu smiled wryly. This was Jun Linyuan's plan, which he had told Emperor Wu in advance. But Emperor Wu didn't expect the fighting to be so fierce. Why is Junjun up there? It's so cold. What's he doing outside? Who's with him? The Empress Dowager asked hastily. Of course, some people would use this opportunity to slander Feng Wu. Mrs. Zhou was one such person. She immediately said, His Royal Highness's guard is right outside. He's kneeling on the ground. Get him in here, the Empress Dowager shouted. It was none other than Zhao Jia, who had told Feng Wu that he was going home. He told the Empress Dowager everything before she even asked. It was Miss Feng Wu. She asked me where she could have some fun around this place, so I had no choice but to tell her about a hot spring on the mountain. I didn't expect her to be so excited. She immediately ran to tell His Royal Highness, and begged him to go into the hot spring with her. His Royal Highness didn't look well. He kept coughing, and his face was very pale. He refused at first, but Miss Feng Wu wouldn't stop nagging. Hearing this, the Empress Dowager was furious. She hated Feng Wu more than ever. How dare she bellowed. Zhao Jia didn't dare utter a word. Go on. The Empress Dowager glared at Zhao Jia. Zhao Jia seemed frightened and spoke in a trembling voice. Miss Feng Wu told His Royal Highness that they could enjoy the hot spring while sipping monkey wine and talking about life. That persuaded His Royal Highness, and they went up the mountain together. Zhao Jia burst into tears. But I never expected that Miss Feng Wu would lead His Royal Highness to his death. His Royal Highness is so weak, and the fighting up there is so fierce. The Empress Dowager almost passed out from her rage. That Feng Wu accused everyone else of being spies, but as it turned out, she's the biggest spy. The Empress Dowager gritted her teeth. Bring all her people here. I'm going to chop their heads off. The Empress Dowager had always been a willful person, not to mention that her favorite grandson was concerned. She wanted to kill the entire Feng clan. Empress Dugu and Mrs. Zhou looked at each other. This Zhao Jia was really useful. If Feng Wu could escape the attack, the Empress Dowager would still kill her. Wait. Luckily, Jun Linyuan had told Emperor Wu the plan beforehand. Otherwise, he would have believed the slander. At the same time, Feng Wu had no idea what was going on at the foot of the mountain. She was in a lot of danger at the moment. Because even Jun Linyuan didn't know that some high-ranking official from the Zhenhua Empire was also involved. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As soon as she landed, countless arrows flew at her. She looked up and saw that both Jun Linyuan and Feng were engaged in battle. Even if Feng Xin were here, he wouldn't be able to help her. Chapter 2186. Unexpected Danger. Chapter 2186. Unexpected Danger. Feng Wu didn't have much time to react. Another arrow was flying at her. Without thinking, Feng Wu dodged to one side. But there were so many arrows. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. An arrow still hit her in the back. But there was no pain. Because Jun Linyuan had made her wear the soft armor. Therefore, none of the arrows were able to injure her. Rumble. Explosions kept going off beneath them. Run! Jun Linyuan shouted at Feng Wu. Feng Wu nodded and dashed off. According to their plan, if they ran into danger, they would switch to Plan B. The backup plan was to run down the mountain, since reinforcements would come for them, and Feng Wu would be safe. And that was what Feng Wu did. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. She ran as fast as her legs could carry her. Watch out! Feng Wu heard a voice. It was the White Fairy. She said, that way is dangerous. Turn around now. What? Feng Wu was surprised. That wasn't her plan. You're in danger, the White Fairy shouted. Get into the woods. At that moment, Feng Wu felt the danger coming from the foot of the mountain. Someone out there wanted to kill her. Who could it be? But she didn't have time to figure that out now. She needed to run for her life first. Whoosh! As the White Fairy suggested, Feng Wu dashed into the woods, running so fast that even the White Fairy was surprised. She was right. Several men followed her into the woods. Their faces were all covered with black scarves. With murderous looks in their eyes, they followed Feng Wu, trying to surround her. Feng Wu wasn't capable enough to fight them yet, but the White Fairy was much more powerful. Although her cultivation level dropped by a whole stage outside the tombs, she was still a formidable cultivator. She told Feng Wu, there are 7 of them in total. 6 are spiritual lords, and 1 is a spiritual king. Feng Wu almost burst into tears. Seriously? Since when are there so many spiritual lords? The White Fairy shook her head. They're here specifically to kill you. Feng Wu nodded, and found that it made sense. They knew that she was a level 7 spiritual elder, so they sent 6 spiritual lords, and a spiritual king, to make sure that she would be killed. Feng Wu recalled what Jun Linyuan had told her. He said that if she ran into unexpected danger, stall for 5 minutes, and he would be there for her. That spiritual king. Feng Wu gritted her teeth. I can lure the spiritual king away for you, but you need to deal with the spiritual lords yourself. The White Fairy gave her a sympathetic look. I've left the tombs and it's not dark yet. I'm far from being at full power. Chapter 2187. Who are you? Chapter 2187. Who are you? Feng Wu nodded. The 7 men were on her heels. They were silent, fast, and precise, like the real assassins. They fanned out, trying to eventually surround Feng Wu. Right now, 2 of them were directly behind her. One was the spiritual king, and the other one a spiritual lord. Feng Wu ran through the woods without uttering a word. But they were getting closer and closer. Soon the spiritual lord made his first strike. He threw a dagger at her from 20 meters away. Die, he shouted. He's a level 2 spiritual lord, the White Fairy warned Feng Wu. She didn't have a physical form, so when she stayed inside the jade pendant, Even the spiritual king didn't notice her. Feng Wu was only a level 7 spiritual elder, and wasn't capable enough to withstand that strike. But in a moment like this, if she couldn't get away, she would be killed. Therefore, Feng Wu jumped forward, and the dagger brushed past the top of her head. But because of that, the two men caught up with her. They were a spiritual lord and a spiritual king. Their faces were covered by black scarves, and she couldn't tell who they were, but the spiritual king somehow looked familiar. Was he an acquaintance? Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. Meanwhile, the spiritual king crossed his hands behind his back and stared at Feng Wu with his cold eyes, as if she had killed his entire family. The spiritual lord walked toward her with a smirk. Blades glinted coldly in his hands. Feng Wu sat on the ground and kept inching away from him. She could see the hatred in his eyes. He wanted to kill her with his own hands. Do you hate me? Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. The spiritual lord didn't reply. He looked at Feng Wu as if she was already dead. Feng Wu tried her best to relax. If she could stall for 5 minutes, Jun Linyuan would come for her. Buy herself some time. That was all she needed to do now. You're both so much stronger than me, and there's no way that I can get away from you. I know I'm going to die, so I only have a small request. Feng Wu stared at the spiritual lord. Who are you, and why do you want to kill me? The spiritual lord smirked. Why don't you think that we're ninjas of the Dongseng kingdom? Feng Wu said grumpily. I can see that you can't wait to kill me in particular, so you're definitely not from the Dongseng kingdom. The spiritual lord looked back at the spiritual king. The spiritual king had his hands behind his back, and the lower hem of his clothes flapped in the wind. Don't I deserve to know why I'm going to die? Feng Wu added. The spiritual king nodded. The spiritual lord had been waiting for a chance to take off his scarf. With a tearing sound, he ripped the scarf off his face. He looked very ordinary. If one had to describe him, this man felt more like a subordinate than a leader. Have I seen you somewhere before? Feng Wu searched her memory. Of course Miss Feng Wu has seen me before, but I'm simply too lowly to catch your eye. The spiritual lord chuckled. Chapter 2188 Untitled. Chapter 2188 Untitled. An idea suddenly struck Feng Wu. I know who you are. You were Zhuoqingyu's guard. Feng Wu glared at him. I saw you by her side when I was little, but you weren't there when I got older. The spiritual lord looked enraged. Shut up. How dare you mention her name? He stepped forward and struck down at Feng Wu's head. Other people would have been scared out of their wits, but Feng Wu remained unperturbed. Were you fired? The spiritual lord didn't reply. Feng Wu said casually, if you kill me, you'll never know how Zhuoqingyu died. Hearing Zhuoqingyu's name, the spiritual lord shifted, and his fist moved away from her head. Boom! The fist brushed past Feng Wu's ear and landed on a rock nearby. The impact immediately turned the rock to powder. It really was you. You killed Qingyu. The spiritual lord jumped at Feng Wu, trying to grab her by the neck. Feng Wu shifted to the side to dodge his attack. Wait! She smirked. Did I say that? The spiritual king suddenly spoke in a cold voice. Kill her? Yes. The spiritual lord drew out his sword. Feng Wu stared at the spiritual king and cried out. Master Zhua. She knew that the spiritual lord had been Zhuoqingyu's guard, since the spiritual king could order the guard around. Who else could he be if not Zhuoqingyu's father? Haha. The man laughed coldly, and his eyes were filled with mocking. He didn't give a direct answer, and only stared at the spiritual lord. What are you waiting for? Meanwhile, Feng Wu took a deep breath. If she didn't make a breakthrough now, she wouldn't have another chance. The white fairy gave her a nod, hinting that she would hold back the spiritual king. Therefore, the moment the spiritual lord struck down at Feng Wu, break! Feng Wu broke one of the white balls in her dantian. Jun Linyuan had refined the seed of the spirit source for her. Not only that, he had also divided the essence of the seed into 10 white balls. She could easily crush one and make a breakthrough. Feng Wu called them advancement eggs. At that critical moment, Feng Wu crushed an egg. Poof! The spiritual essence around Feng Wu all flowed toward her. And she was protected by the law of nature. Nothing could touch her now. The spiritual lord's hand froze halfway. No one could go against the law of nature. Therefore, he could only watch as Feng Wu made a breakthrough. But he could still attack her after the breakthrough was over. The spiritual lord looked at the spiritual king. The spiritual king crossed his hands behind his back and nodded arrogantly. Thanks to Junlin Yuan's advancement eggs, Feng Wu could make rapid advancements. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Chapter 2189. Chapter 2189, Untitled. Feng Wu finished her advancement in a matter of seconds. She was a level 8 spiritual elder now. Congratulations. You've managed to rise a level before you die, the spiritual lord said coldly. But what's the difference between a level 7 and level 8 spiritual elder? They're all ants to me. Die. The spiritual lord raised his hand again and struck down at Feng Wu's head. But immediately he was dumbfounded. Even the spiritual king was shocked. That was because Feng Wu broke another advancement egg. Rumble. The egg burst open. And Feng Wu began to make a breakthrough again. The spiritual lord stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. The spiritual king narrowed his eyes as well. They stood there and watched Feng Wu make her breakthrough. In a few seconds, Feng Wu was a level 9 spiritual elder. Although he was astonished, the spiritual lord still heaved a sigh of relief. He was glad that Feng Wu was only a level 9 spiritual elder and hadn't risen directly to the spiritual elder stage. But the next second, he wanted to slap himself. What was wrong with him? Why did he think that Feng Wu could make 2 breakthroughs in one go? That was impossible. Feng Wu, you're a level 9 spiritual elder now. Things are finally getting interesting. The spiritual lord smirked and said, But you still aren't my match. Feng Wu opened her eyes and looked at him. Are you sure that I'm still not your match? The spiritual lord snorted. Fight me if you don't believe it. Feng Wu gave him a startled look. Although I think I can defeat you. After some consideration, she tilted her head and looked at the spiritual lord. But there's still some risk, so why should I fight you now? The spiritual lord stared at Feng Wu. What do you mean? Feng Wu said. I'm saying, why don't I make another breakthrough so that I can be sure that I'll win? This was the first time that Feng Wu realized how capable Junlin Yuan was. She had no idea that someone could create advancement eggs that would allow her to make instant breakthroughs. She didn't need any enlightenment. It was so easy. Hearing what Feng Wu said, the spiritual lord guffawed. Ha ha ha. Feng Wu, do you know how ridiculous you sound? Feng Wu asked. Is it so funny? The spiritual lord nodded and said solemnly. Who do you think you are? You can't make advancements as you like. At our level, do you know how difficult it is for us to make a breakthrough? Feng Wu said. I don't think it's that difficult. The spiritual lord laughed again. It's not difficult? If that's the case, make a breakthrough now. If you can do it, you can take my head. Feng Wu's eyes lit up. Do you mean it? The spiritual lord snorted and said. Of course. Advance now. Feng Wu nodded. She started after that. Chapter 2190. Chapter 2190, Untitled. Feng Wu nodded. She started after that. Spiritual essence flowed toward her, and soon, she was ready for another breakthrough. Whoosh. The spiritual lord stood there and watched in amazement as this happened. The spiritual essence began to rush toward her like a tidal wave. He was astonished. He stared at Feng Wu and couldn't believe his eyes. The look in the spiritual king's eyes also changed. At first, he had looked at Feng Wu as if she was a dead person. But now, he knew that he was looking at a rising genius. If only she was his daughter. At that thought, the spiritual king was filled with rage and reluctance. But right at that moment, Feng Wu finished her breakthrough. She looked up and beamed at the spiritual lord. What did you say just then? The spiritual lord stared at Feng Wu. He couldn't believe his eyes. How could she make it look so effortless? How? How did you do it? How? I don't believe you. He couldn't believe that someone could be so talented. Feng Wu shrugged. Is it that hard? The spiritual lord was speechless. Was it that hard? It had taken him some painstaking effort before he reached the spiritual lord stage at 30 years old. Right now, he was one of the most capable men in his province. It nearly cost him his life to reach this stage. But this girl only sat on the ground and shouted that she was going to make a breakthrough. Then boom! She did it. Was she even human? Fengwu put her hands on her knees and looked at him with a smile. The spiritual lord didn't know what to say. Fengwu said, "Are you going to go back on your word?" The spiritual lord didn't know what to say. He felt cornered. How awkward. The spiritual king frowned and said, "Do it." The spiritual lord said, "What? Do what?" The spiritual king said, "Are you fond of Qingyu?" The spiritual lord said, "Of course I am." "I'll marry her to you," said the spiritual king. "Kill her now." Although Qingyu was dead, the spiritual lord was still thrilled that he could be her husband in name. He nodded but then realized something. Why did his boss keep urging him to do it? Why wouldn't he kill her himself? However, he only kept that thought to himself. The most important thing now was to kill Fengwu. He drew out a dagger. Fengwu frowned at him. "Are you going to break your promise?" The spiritual lord smirked. "What promise? You've killed my wife. There's no promise for you. Die." Suddenly Fengwu, who was a level 1 spiritual lord now, rose to her feet. Chapter 2191. Chapter 2191, Untitled. With a casual wave of her hand, the dagger in the spiritual lord's hand snapped in two. The spiritual lord stared at Fengwu in disbelief. He then looked at the dagger. It was broken. Just like that. "You!" To his astonishment, Fengwu waved her hand, and the broken blade flew toward him. Whoosh! The blade stabbed him in the eye, and blood gushed out. The spiritual lord was petrified. "You!" He only uttered one word before Fengwu raised her leg. The spiritual lord was shocked. He saw Fengwu's movement and wanted to dodge, but no matter how he tried, he was half a second too slow. The impact of Fengwu's kick sent him flying backward. Thump! The spiritual lord fell on the ground with blood gushing out of his mouth. His face was ghastly pale. He stared at Fengwu in bewilderment and murmured, How? Yes, how did this happen? How could Fengwu suddenly rise from a level 7 spiritual elder to a level 1 spiritual lord? Was she even human? Fengwu marched toward him with a smirk on her face. The spiritual lord looked terrified. But he soon realized something. Why should he be afraid? Although he wasn't Fengwu's match, there was a spiritual king behind him. When he intervened, Fengwu would stand no chance, even if she was a level 1 spiritual lord. Therefore he said sarcastically, Do you want to kill me? Fengwu said, You wanted to kill me. Why can't I do the same? The spiritual lord smirked. Yes, a level 1 spiritual lord is capable enough to kill me. But have you forgotten about the person behind me? Fengwu didn't think much of it. Who? Do you mean the great Master Zhua? The spiritual lord stared at Fengwu. Do you know who he is? Fengwu shrugged. Who else could marry the already dead Zhuqingyu to you? The spiritual lord couldn't argue with that. But he didn't care. He smirked and said, Aren't you afraid of a spiritual king? So, you're waiting for him to save you. Fengwu smiled at him. If that's the case, you'll be disappointed. Look. Fengwu pointed at the spiritual king, aka Master Zhua. The spiritual lord was shocked once more when he saw what Master Zhua was like. That was because. How? The spiritual king stood there like a statue. He kept his hands behind his back and remained motionless. Master. The spiritual lord tried to get his master's attention. But Master Zhua's face was blank as he stared into empty air. Although he wasn't moving, he seemed to be engaged in a fierce battle. Fengwu smiled a little. She knew exactly why Master Zhua was like that. The white fairy was fighting him. Run! The white fairy told Fengwu in her mind. I can't hold him back for much longer. Chapter 2192. Chapter 2192, Untitled. Hearing the white fairy's warning, Feng Wu dashed off without hesitation. But before she left, she slid the blade across the spiritual lord's throat. The spiritual lord wanted to cry for help, but he was too late. Poof! Blood gushed out of the gash on his neck. The spiritual lord stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. He wanted to turn around to look at the spiritual king and ask him why he wouldn't help him. But he never had the chance. Because he was dead before he could do so. Damn it! The spiritual king cursed inwardly. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but he couldn't. Because a ghost-like being came out of nowhere and started attacking him. As soon as he tried to fight back, he was confined by his opponent's spiritual essence, and neither of them could move. So he had to watch as the spiritual lord fell. Gritting his teeth, he started attacking the semi-transparent being. Feng Wu ran as fast as she could, brushing past the trees that flanked the path. I can't stop. I must keep running. After finding a direction, she nimbly jumped around the woods like a cat. There was one spiritual king and 5 spiritual lords left. If the 5 spiritual lords joined hands, Feng Wu felt like crying. I can't be that unlucky, right? Just then, she sensed something dangerous ahead of her. Ahead! Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. She couldn't see anyone for several hundred meters ahead of her. It was just a normal road. However, she then noticed 2 trees that had a rather eerie feel about them. They felt unnaturally still. Feng Wu's stomach lurched. When she looked again, she saw a thin string tied between them, so thin that it was barely detectable. The string was transparent, so that it was almost invisible in the sunlight. Feng Wu only knew it was there because of past experience. Because she had done it to other people before. Feng Wu was glad that she was sharp enough. Otherwise, if she ran into the string at her current speed, she might have gotten her head cut off. She made a sudden turn when she was 10 meters away and headed for the northwest. She chose that direction because it was closer to the exit of the woods. If Jun Linyuan came to rescue her, that would be the shortest route. However, as soon as she turned, 2 figures jumped down from the trees. Both were very capable men. One was a level 3 spiritual lord, and the other one a level 4. Being a mere level 1 spiritual lord, Feng Wu wasn't their match. The 2 cultivators glanced at each other, and both seemed frustrated. What a cunning girl. She had spotted the transparent string. Let's go. We must kill her. The 2 spiritual lords spoke in unison. Chapter 2193. Chapter 2193, Untitled. Let's go. We must kill her. The 2 spiritual lords spoke in unison. However, when they started chasing her, they realized how fast the girl was. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. She zigzagged through the woods like a nimble cat. Soon they lost sight of her. How did that happen? The 2 spiritual lords saw surprise in each other's eyes. It shouldn't have happened. They had both been level 1 spiritual lords before, so they knew better than anyone else how big the gap was between the 2 levels. No matter how talented the girl was, she couldn't suddenly disappear from sight, unless she's hiding somewhere. The 2 men looked at each other. Find her. The level 4 man gestured at the other man. They each chose a direction and searched 2 different areas, hoping that they would soon find Feng Wu. The level 3 man nodded. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. They quietly flitted through the woods without making a sound. Suddenly, the level 3 man sensed something amiss, because he noticed that the spiritual essence seemed to be flowing in a certain direction. Immediately, he turned in that direction. Soon, he reached an old tree so thick that 3 people would only just be able to get their arms around it. The leaves of the old tree had turned yellow, and the bark was covered with dots. It looked like it was going to collapse at any moment. The spiritual lord stopped and stared at a spot in the tree. He narrowed his eyes. He looked pleased. He had a speculation, and he was going to prove it. He touched the tree trunk. If he had stuck to the plan, he should have called for his level 4 friend. But the reward of killing Feng Wu all by himself was too generous to resist. If he could kill her on his own, why share? The man immediately gave up on the idea of waiting for his friend. However, He was perplexed. Before they had set out, they were told that their target was a girl who was a level 7 spiritual elder, but this girl was a level 1 spiritual lord. Could there have been a mistake? With that question in mind, the man peeled off the rotten tree bark. Soon, he saw a stunningly beautiful face. Yes, she was his target. The man nodded. Their captain had shown them her portrait before they left, and they had all studied it carefully. It was a portrait of their target. The captain had also told them something else. She's only a level 7 spiritual elder, but she's very lucky. Anything can happen. Don't be arrogant just because you're all spiritual lords. Don't let your guard down. She has killed spiritual lords before. No matter what happens, don't lose your target. If you can kill her, the reward will be beyond your imagination. Don't be reckless. Chapter 2194. Chapter 2194, Untitled. He could still remember what the captain said, but when he saw Feng Wu, he didn't think much of it. He just couldn't see how this girl could be so capable. She was just another pretty girl. All he had to do was wrap his fingers around her neck, and she would be dead. The man reached out for Feng Wu's neck. Right at that moment, Feng Wu's eyes snapped open. She kept her unblinking cold gaze on the man. WTF. The man almost jumped. But he reacted quickly enough and smirked. You stupid girl. Of all the places, you had to hide in a tree. You have nowhere to go now. As he spoke, he raised his right hand. He was about to smack Feng Wu on the top of her head. If he succeeded, he would kill Feng Wu instantly. But there was no fear in Feng Wu's eyes. She said coldly, You can't kill me. The man snorted. Why can't I? Feng Wu said calmly. I'm making a breakthrough right now. If you kill me, the law of nature will make sure that your attack will backfire. Hearing this, the man laughed. Ha ha ha. If that's true, there's really nothing I can do, but... He looked Feng Wu up and down and said scornfully, Do you think you can do it just like that, by closing your eyes and sitting on the ground? You wouldn't believe it. No one would. Cultivation was such a difficult thing. But she made it sound like she could do it whenever she wanted. That just wasn't possible. So die now. Without hesitation, the man struck down at Feng Wu's head. What happened was quicker than words could describe. Feng Wu shouted, Now! Thump! Somewhere he couldn't see, an advancement egg burst open. Everything happened in a split second. The man felt all the power of nature working against his hand, and he couldn't move another inch. It was as if Feng Wu had turned into an untouchable being that nothing could harm. The spiritual essence around them all flowed in their direction. More precisely, it all surged toward Feng Wu. The speed was unbelievable. The man looked shocked. He had never expected this. How could he? He stared at the pretty face in disbelief. When she said that she could make a breakthrough, he thought that she was only bluffing. But it was true. It took him a while to digest that information. But even if that was the case, she was only going to be a level 2 spiritual lord, which was still below him. He could wait. He could kill her after she was done. That thought reassured him. He crossed his arms and leaned back on the tree. Chapter 2195, Untitled. Chapter 2195, Untitled. He stared at Feng Wu with a half-smile on her face. He would like to see how much longer the girl could stall for. The advancement soon ended. Once Feng Wu was no longer under the protection of the power of nature, he could easily kill her. Rumble. Finally, Feng Wu became a level 2 spiritual lord. The man stared at Feng Wu, and his eyes glinted coldly. I've given you enough time. Now your life is mine. He gave Feng Wu no time to react. Without hesitation, he aimed his fist at Feng Wu's chest. No one could survive if their heart was broken. But he didn't expect what happened next. When he raised his hand, the power of nature covered Feng Wu again. It was the fiercest power. Caught off guard, the man was almost knocked away. What the heck? He was so sure that he was going to kill Feng Wu. But as it turned out, he was the one that was sent flying. When he looked again, he was astonished. How is this possible? The most impossible thing was happening to Feng Wu. She was making a breakthrough again. She was only a level 2 spiritual lord before, but she was a level 3 now. The man's stomach lurched. He felt a chill run down his spine. This was so strange. The unknown scared him. He felt goosebumps all over his body, so he turned to run. Run! He was too late. He only took one step before Feng Wu grabbed his belt. Panicked, he tried to slap Feng Wu with the back of his hand. If Feng Wu were still a level 1 spiritual lord, she wouldn't stand a chance. But she had just made 2 breakthroughs. After that, she became a level 3 spiritual lord. They were of the same level now. Of course, Feng Wu wouldn't lose this battle. There was a rumbling sound. Feng Wu raised her fist and punched the man in the head. Rumble! The man's head immediately caved in. His brains were all over the ground, and his eyes popped out. It was a horrifying scene. He no longer moved, as if he had frozen. He was killed instantly. One punch. It only took Feng Wu one punch to take out a level 3 spiritual lord. She was much more powerful now. After killing the man, Feng Wu didn't lower her guard because she knew that there was still a level 4 spiritual lord nearby. She was right. When Feng Wu pushed the dead man aside, the level 4 spiritual lord was standing right in front of her and staring at her with a murderous look in his eyes. Did you kill him? He narrowed his eyes. He glared at Feng Wu. His aura was very intimidating. How frightening. Feng Wu was always careful, and right now, she was more alarmed than ever. Chapter 2192. Chapter 2192, Untitled. Hearing the White Fairy's warning, Feng Wu dashed off without hesitation. But before she left, she slid the blade across the spiritual lord's throat. The spiritual lord wanted to cry for help, but he was too late. Poof! Blood gushed out of the gash on his neck. The spiritual lord stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. He wanted to turn around to look at the spiritual king and ask him why he wouldn't help him. But he never had the chance. Because he was dead before he could do so. Damn it! The spiritual king cursed inwardly. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but he couldn't. Because a ghost-like being came out of nowhere and started attacking him. As soon as he tried to fight back, he was confined by his opponent's spiritual essence, and neither of them could move. So he had to watch as the spiritual lord fell. Gritting his teeth, he started attacking the semi-transparent being. Feng Wu ran as fast as she could, brushing past the trees that flanked the path. I can't stop. I must keep running. After finding a direction, she nimbly jumped around the woods like a cat. There was 1 spiritual king and 5 spiritual lords left. If the 5 spiritual lords joined hands, Feng Wu felt like crying. I can't be that unlucky, right? Just then, she sensed something dangerous ahead of her. Ahead! Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. She couldn't see anyone for several hundred meters ahead of her. It was just a normal road. However, she then noticed 2 trees that had a rather eerie feel about them. They felt unnaturally still. Feng Wu's stomach lurched. When she looked again, she saw a thin string tied between them, so thin that it was barely detectable. The string was transparent, so that it was almost invisible in the sunlight. Feng Wu only knew it was there because of past experience. Because she had done it to other people before. Feng Wu was glad that she was sharp enough. Otherwise, if she ran into the string at her current speed, she might have gotten her head cut off. She made a sudden turn when she was 10 meters away and headed for the northwest. She chose that direction because it was closer to the exit of the woods. If Jun Linyuan came to rescue her, that would be the shortest route. However, as soon as she turned, 2 figures jumped down from the trees. Both were very capable men. One was a level 3 spiritual lord, and the other one a level 4. Being a mere level 1 spiritual lord, Feng Wu wasn't their match. The 2 cultivators glanced at each other, and both seemed frustrated. What a cunning girl. She had spotted the transparent string. Let's go. We must kill her. The 2 spiritual lords spoke in unison. Chapter 2197. Chapter 2197, Untitled. Feng Wu grinned. That's right. I have it. There was a greedy look in his eyes. Suddenly, his eyes glinted coldly, and he used all his strength to charge at Feng Wu. The seed of the spirit source. He had to have it. If he took it from her, he would be able to rise to the spiritual king stage. To him, that would be like becoming God. However, he had underestimated Feng Wu. She had never lost to an opponent of the same cultivation level. He was never going to be her match. The moment the man charged at her, Feng Wu raised her foot. Thump! It was the sound of something falling on the ground. Although the man spared no effort, Feng Wu still kicked him away. He flew through the air and fell to a heap on the ground. Unlike earlier, Feng Wu had used all her strength this time. She heard the cracking sound of broken bones. At least 4 of his ribs were broken. The man coughed and pointed at Feng Wu, but he couldn't utter a word. He was fatally wounded. Feng Wu casually walked to his side, squatted down and smiled at him. You can't talk anymore, can you? The man said. How did you level up so fast? Feng Wu said proudly. You said it yourself already. I have the seed of the spirit source. The man wouldn't believe her. Even if that's the case, it still won't make you level up so fast. Feng Wu raised an eyebrow. I had help. The man asked, from whom? Feng Wu said, you're going to die, so I suppose it won't hurt to tell you the truth. The person was Jun Linyuan. The man was shocked. His Royal Highness? That's impossible. Why would the Crown Prince help you? Feng Wu asked. Maybe it's because I'm very pretty. The man said, no. His Royal Highness is fond of Miss Qinghuan. He would never help you. Miss Qinghuan? Feng Wu smiled a little. The level 3 spiritual lord was Zhuo Qingyu's guard, and this one referred to Zhuo Qinghuan as Miss Qinghuan. It wasn't difficult to connect the dots. Feng Wu snorted. I see that you're Zhuo Qinghuan's guard. However, the man lowered his head in frustration. I haven't been her guard for a very long time. Haven't been? That was to say he had been once. He stared at Feng Wu. It wasn't the Crown Prince, was it? Feng Wu shook her head. But it really was him. She had even swapped bodies with Jun Linyuan for a while. Zhuo Qinghuan would be furious. A voice suddenly rang out behind Feng Wu. Then you'll have to die. Feng Wu turned around and saw a figure standing nearby. He looked exceptionally calm, and there was a crossbow in his hands. You're here. The level 4 spiritual lord was thrilled to see his level 5 teammate. He wanted to remind the man that Feng Wu had the seed of spirit source at first, but in the end decided to keep that fact to himself. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.